Welcome to the third lesson in this class. We're going to be learning how to make a Mille Feuille. Now this is such a classical French pastry. You can find this in any French coffee shop in France. And it's super fun to make as well. So in this lesson we're going to be learning some techniques of assembling the Mille Feuille and also how to make a really silky pastry cream. So let's begin with the recipe. The first step when we make the Mille Feuille is to stretch out our puff pastry dough. So what I'm going to do is stretch this out to roughly about 35 centimeters and about 20 centimeters in breadth. So after I've stretched this out, I'm going to put it in the freezer just to rest, and then I'm going to prepare my pastry cream. So just put a little bit of flour. You don't want to put too much because you don't want to dry out the pastry. And just put a little bit of pressure because the pastry is still quite cold, so we need to get it to temperature. Just gently. Now it feels more malleable. That's good. And if the pastry is sticking into your rolling pin, just put a tiny bit of flour. Let's measure the pastry. Yeah, so it's roughly that. We need to stretch this out a little bit more. Yeah, just a tiny bit more. And if it's slightly uneven on the sides, don't worry about it because we will trim it. Perfect. So I'm going to put this in the freezer for about 30 minutes and then I'm going to trim it and bake it. So while you're freezing this, set your oven to preheat at 200 degrees Celsius so that the oven is nicely preheated and hot when we are going to bake this. Just brush off all the excess flour. The other side as well. And I'm going to put this on a baking paper. And just put a plastic layer on top and then put it in the freezer. After 30 minutes, our pastry is well rested and it's quite cold now. So what we'll do is we'll just trim the edges to make it neat, and then we'll take a fork and basically make holes in the pastry. So don't throw away this. You can actually just stretch it out and put some cheese on it and bake it. So this is really good dough actually. So next what I'm gonna do is take a fork and just dot the pastry. So the reason I do this is because it bakes more evenly and also it doesn't rise as much, because with this pastry we don't want it to rise a lot. So once you've finished dotting the pastry, we're going to shift it to a baking tray and then I'll show you how we bake this. Let's put a sheet of baking paper and press it down nicely. Then just put a tray on top of it. So this will basically help it to bake evenly and not rise unevenly on any spot. So I'm going to bake this for 30 minutes and then we're going to check the color and the texture of the pastry. It's been 30 minutes and what I'm going to do now is just gently press the tray against the pastry to deflate it slightly. Perfect, that looks great. So what I'm going to do is bake this for roughly about 20 minutes more so it gets really nice color on top. This is our final pastry and it looks really nice. So if you want a really flat pastry, what you can do is when you put a tray on top, you can put a bowl with some rice or chickpeas just to put some pie weight. But I actually quite like the rustic look when it's slightly uneven. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip it. So that will be my sort of flat side. The first step we do is we just trim the sides. Just to get a nice and even side. And always use a bread knife because it makes it really easy and you get really clean edges. After cutting the edges, you can see it's quite neat and even. And cutting the edges is optional. If you don't want to do it, you can totally skip it. But I like doing it because it looks much neater. Just make a mark at the 4-inch level. Just like that. It's always good to make a mark and then you can cut it rather than just cutting it straight away. Similarly here as well. Perfect. So when we cut it, basically just drag it down just like that. And don't put a lot of pressure because you don't want to crush the layers. So this is our first layer. Perfect. After getting 3 equal parts, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 2 ways of doing it. The first one is basically you assemble it individually, and the second one is you basically overlap it on top of each other. So the second way is sort of more commercial way of doing it, but if you're doing it at home, I would do it the first way because it looks more neater. So to do that, what I'm going to do is basically just cut 5 centimeter from here, just like that. So just at the 5 centimeter mark, just going to make a line. And just drag it. Perfect. So I'm going to arrange this individually. I'm going to pipe it and then put it on top of each other. When I assemble these ones, I'm just going to pipe it like that, then put it on top of each other, then pipe again, then put that on top of each other, and then cut it. So you can do either way, whichever you like. So making pastry cream is actually one of the most fundamental topics you have to learn if you want to master French pastry, because we use this so often. Making it isn't that hard, but there are a few steps you need to take care of to get a really smooth pastry cream. So I've separated 6 egg yolks, and the egg yolks actually form the base of the pastry cream because of the fat in them. So make sure to use egg yolks, and if you get a little bit of egg whites, just try to remove it. But if you get a little bit, don't worry about it. The next one is caster sugar. So what caster sugar does is basically it gives flavor to the pastry cream, as well as it basically prevents it from curdling, because the sugar basically coats the egg yolks and increases the temperature to which it can be cooked towards. The third one is plain flour. So you could use corn flour as well if you want to make a gluten-free pastry cream, but I'm going to use the plain flour today. So flour is basically a starch, and it acts as a thickening agent and gives the pastry cream really good structure and helps it stay together into really nice pastry cream. The next ingredient is butter. So we add butter at the end when we make the pastry cream. It gives a really nice texture and it makes the pastry cream really smooth and really silky. So it's definitely like a flavoring agent and also a thickening agent, and it also gives a really creamy texture. So definitely add this in the pastry cream. The next ingredient is milk. So I'm using some full fat milk here, but if you want to make a dairy-free version, you can also use soy milk. So milk actually forms the base of the recipe. Milk is really rich in proteins and also fats, and it's the liquid in this recipe which gives the custard a lot of structure and a lot of depth and also a lot of flavor. To flavor the custard, we'll be using some vanilla bean paste. You could use a full vanilla bean as well if you can get it, or you can use vanilla essence as well. So vanilla actually gives a really good flavor to the custard, and it's a very classic flavoring. But this custard can be flavored with a lot of different things as well. You could make a coffee custard, you could also make a cinnamon custard. So there are so many things you can flavor the custard with. But for this recipe, we're going to make a classic vanilla bean custard. So the process of making this custard is actually quite simple. What we do is we just whisk the sugar in the egg yolks and then add the flour and whisk that together as well. We get the milk to a simmer, temper the eggs and cook the custard until it thickens. Then we add the butter and the vanilla paste. So let's begin with the process of making the custard. So just take a whisk and whisk in the sugars. And you're going to whisk this for about 30 seconds until the sugar is combined. So sugar is combined. I'm going to add the flour in it. And now I'm going to whisk it until it looks really creamy. So this should also take about 15 to 20 seconds. So see how creamy that is? That is really good. So now what we'll do is we'll get the milk to a simmer and then temper the eggs. So just pour in the milk. And I'm going to put this on medium flame and get it to a really light simmer. So when you start seeing bubbles on the side, that's really good. So I'll take it off the gas now and temper the eggs. So pour it really slowly and keep whisking continuously because we don't want the eggs to get curdled. Perfect. So after you whisk in really well, I'm going to pour it back in the pot and cook it until it comes to a boil. So put the gas on medium heat, and what we'll do is initially we'll use a whisk and then we'll use a spatula. So just keep whisking continuously because you don't want the mixture to curdle. And this should take about 1 minute or so. You'll start seeing it getting more thicker and then it'll start boiling, and when it starts to come to a boil, we'll take it off the gas. So it's been 30 seconds and I can already feel the custard's becoming more thicker. So can you see our custard's come to a boil now? And now we'll just take it off the gas. Just quickly add the cold butter and whisk in really well. And just about half a teaspoon of vanilla paste. So I want to just whisk it so well that it emulsifies really nicely. Perfect. So if I see the texture, it's almost like mayonnaise. It's really smooth custard. That is a really nice and smooth pastry cream. So to store the pastry cream, we always put a layer of plastic sheet on top of the surface because we don't want any spots to form a skin, because that gives a really unpleasant flavor. So just take a plastic wrap and just put it on top like that, and then just drift it down. So it covers the skin. Perfect. Our pastry cream has been cooling down for about 3 hours now. So when you actually see the pastry cream, it would have basically set really nicely. So if you want, you can actually just whip this and use it to pipe it in the Mille Feuille, but what I like doing is just lightening it slightly with some whipped cream. So this is just 100 grams of whipped cream and about 20 grams of sugar. I'm going to whip this to soft peaks. So you see how that is? That is perfect. That's softly whipped cream. What I'm going to do is I'm going to gently fold it in the pastry cream now. Before I fold it in the pastry cream, I'm just going to whip the pastry cream slightly just to lighten it up. Perfect, that's good. It's become quite smooth now. Let's gently fold in the whipped cream. Let's use a spatula. And you'll see progressively the cream will become more lighter. And in French pastry, this is called crème diplomate. It's just lightened pastry cream. Let's add the rest. We're going to mix this until we can't see any white cream and it's completely combined. That looks really good. It's completely combined. I'm going to put this in a piping bag so it's easier for me to assemble the Mille Feuille. When you're filling the piping bag, it's easier to use a glass. You can just cover it like that and fill it and then tie it together. So today when I'm filling it, I'm going to use a piping tip. You can use any piping tip you like, depending on what design you want to make. Just take a scissor and just drag it like that. So it should come off nicely. So that's done. And then you press it inside. And then we fill the piping bag. So don't fill a lot because it's easier to pipe if you have less filling in the piping bag. And now when I take it out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a bread scraper and just push it through. Just take a dough scraper and just push it through and get rid of all the air bubbles by just doing like this. Perfect. And then take your glass here just so that there's any excess cream which comes out, and just tie it like that. Just take a clip and just attach it at the end. So that's sealed and that's ready for piping. Let's learn how to assemble the first one. The first step is to put a tiny bit of pastry cream in the bottom so it sticks. And what you want to do is you want to keep the most even one at the top. So I'm going to put this because this is the most uneven one. And I'm going to just put dollops here just like that. And I'm going to press it and then pull it up. Press it and pull it up. Perfect. Just put another layer of pastry on top of this. So it stays quite evenly on top. If you see from this side, you can see those layers of the dollops, which looks really nice. I'm going to put another layer of pastry cream and then put the layer of puff pastry on top. just make this more even. And I'm just gonna basically put the last layer of pastry on top of this. Perfect. Just in the center. And that's looks so beautiful. So just give it as much height as possible. That's when it looks really nice. I'm gonna finish it with some icing sugar, and then we're gonna cut it and see how it tastes like. Let's finally taste it, and it's a little bit messy to eat it, but it's so tasty. Take all the pastry cream. That is so delicious. Pastry cream is so nice and light. Let's learn how to assemble it the second way. So before I assemble it, I'll make it slightly more even. So you can see that it's a little bit uneven here. So just take your knife and just drag it slightly. So it's more even now. Before we assemble it, I've got a tray with a baking paper. So I'm going to put the pastry on this, because I need to freeze the pastry after I pipe it. So it's always good to have a tray with the baking paper prepared. To pipe the pastry cream, I'm just going to make lines like that. Just a little off corner so it doesn't spread. Just like that. Because when you put the other pastry on top, the pastry cream will spread to the corners. Just a little bit on the side here as well. Put the pastry on top and it should spread. Similarly, we're gonna put the same cream on top of here as well. And just fill it completely. Perfect. And just cover it with the last pastry we have. Just press it slightly. So this is our final pastry. I'm going to put this in the freezer so that it sets for about 2-3 hours, and then we're going to portion it. So this is also another way of doing it. So when you have large sheets of pastry, we make it like this if you're making it in bulk. But if you're making it at home, you can make it the previous method. So before putting in the freezer, if you have pastry cream coming outside here, just use a palette knife and just make it really even so it fills all the gaps. Just like that. Perfect. Now it's ready to be frozen. While our Mille Feuille is in the freezer, I'm going to make icing sugar glaze to put on top of the pastry. So when we make the glaze, just add the milk like 1 tablespoon at a time, because you want this to be quite thick. And just mix it together. Just a little bit more. This looks good. Perfect. So you can see how thick that is. You want it to be that thick. because you want the glaze to be stuck on the pastry. You don't want it to sort of drip down too much. See the consistency? It's very thick. That's exactly what you want. Just remove the plastic sheet. And always keep the baking paper so you can get all the drippings from the glaze on the baking paper. Just put the glaze on top. I'm gonna use a palette knife just to spread it. So after it's become really even, I'm just gonna put just some melted chocolate on top just to drip it, and then I'll make a nice design on top of it. So just take the chocolate and just make a line like that. And if you can see any gaps, just fill that up as well. And just take a palette knife and just do it like this. This is how it looks like. It looks so nice. I'm going to put this in the freezer for about 30 minutes so that the top sets nicely, and then I'm going to portion it. So it's been 30 minutes and it's time to finally portion the Mille Feuille. So what I like doing is taking a bread knife and also a cloth so I can keep wiping it. I'm going to be dividing this into 3 equal parts. So 1, 2 and 3. So when we cut it, just drag the knife gently and just let it go inside. Just like that. So you see all the beautiful layers, and it looks so nice. Similarly this one as well. Just get it from the center. Do you see that beautiful layers? The final Mille Feuille, and you can see all the layers really well, so that the lamination is really good, and the layers of pastry cream are also very nice. So let's finally bite into it. get a few layers. That is so delicious. The pastry is so light, and you can see the layer of pastry cream is really nice as well. So I really hope you enjoyed this recipe.